Wales on the map. Well, here it is. As you can see, it's quite an old map. This is exactly 400 years old, actually. Not this particular copy, but this map, John Speed's map, was done in 1610. And the reason I wanted to start with this one, really, was because I wanted you just to sort of gaze as you were coming in and sitting down in your chairs. I wanted you to look and absorb that shape that is so familiar to all of us, I'm sure, you know, as anybody, as shapes of countries are. Shapes of countries become sort of iconic, they become part of our fabric, and you'll have seen that shape, you'll see it. How many times a day will you see the shape of Wales on various things? You'll see it in books, you'll see it on websites, logos of things, on badges. I tried to find it on the internet today to see if I could find one. I did once at a party somewhere in the Ellen Valley about 15 years ago. See somebody who had a map of Wales as a tattoo on his back, and he was proudly showing it off to everybody. And I thought it must be someone on the internet. He must have shown it off. And actually, there's a lot of people with maps on their tattoos of maps, but not one of Wales that I could find. So you'll have to take my word for it there. But yeah, so John Speed's 1610 map. I mean, it's a pretty good one. 400 years ago, it's a pretty authentic shape. You know, it's very much the shape that we recognise now today. And this, what a beautiful piece of work this was. Part of his Tudor Atlas of the counties of England, Wales and Scotland. This was just at the time, of course, when the crowns of England and Scotland had just united in 1603. The Act of Union between England and Wales had taken place in 1536 and 1542. So the Tudor age was a huge kind of hurrah for mapping, and this was very much part of it. I also draw attention to as they're talking about the shape of the country, the shape of Wales. It has been said, and a few people have mentioned this, that there is something of the shape of a pig's head in the shape of Wales, with the Cleve Peninsula being the ear, Pembrokeshire being the snout, and Gower being the sort of front trotter. You can see it, and it's I don't know if you can see it, but I thought I'd mention it while we were at it. I always think that the most prominent sort of facial feature on the map of Wales, it's slightly flattened here for Speed, I think, ran out of room. We've all done that when writing things. And he's had to sort of slightly slice off the Vale of Glamorgan. But when you look at the Vale, or look at the map of Wales now, the Vale always seems like, and quite aptly I think as well, very sort of jowly bit, you know, a slightly port-ridden old fella, you know, who's developed some good set of jowls on him. You'll notice as well, he forgot to colour in the border between Breconshire and Radnorshire. But not as bad a mistake as he made in Wiltshire when he was doing his Atlas of Britain, John Speed. There was a village called North Berkham in Wiltshire. He couldn't find the name of it in all his notes. So he just wrote on his copy, query, so as to go and check it later on. Sadly, it got printed with that on it. And then for about the next 200 years, dozens of maps kept being produced, all of them claiming to be originals, with the village of Query on them. So you can see plagiarism is quite a big theme in the mapping world. So this was the sort of first time, really, towards the end of the 1500s, at the beginning of the 1600s, that Wales was mapped separately. But of course, you know, it still was very much a subsidiary thing at the time. You can see this is another one of Speed's map from his atlas. You can see this is of Ireland he's trying to show here. But here, Wales is marked purely and solely as part of England. I mean, the word England is actually covering the Welsh territory. So that sort of map of Wales we've just seen was a bit of a token thing, it has to be said. This is the first map. It predates Speed's one by about 40 years rather. It's 1573. This is the first map of Wales as a sort of discrete, separate unit. This was a map done by a Welsh cartographer, Humphrey Cloyd, of Denbighshire. And he was a very passionate Welshman in very, very many ways. And as I say, first to show Wales as a separate unit. Interesting things to look at here, I think, are the fact that the divides of Wales, the three kind of chunks he's put the country into, which is basically Powys, Gwynedd in the north, and sort of the Haybarth, Dyfed, and the south, and Glamorgan. Still very much the same today, absolutely the same. You know, the borders of Wales meet at exactly the same point now as they did then, which is actually Dovey Junction Station, for those of you who are interested. I mean, of all the places to have the beating heart of our nation, is a deserted railway station in the middle of a peat bog. You know, how fantastic is that? But there was some quite, what we would call in modern parlance, we would call it quite a nationalist sentiment in Humphrey Cloyd's map, you know. You can't really see because the quality isn't quite good enough, but All of the names are Welsh. He talks about Drenewydd, there's no mention of Newtown, Aberteifi, not Cardigan, all the rest of it. Sometimes he puts the names in the area names in Welsh and English and Latin, which is pretty good going. And of course, you also notice he takes the border of Wales right up to the River Severn. So where I grew up in Kidderminster, which is about 3 miles the other side of it, you know, it would have been a border town, which is how I always sort of felt it was anyway, really. But this is very much part of the Tudor Golden Age of sort of, you know, Welsh literary flowering, really. I mean, there was the first secular book, really, in the Welsh language, written under Llyfrgell in 1546. There was Jesus College in Oxford, founded as a Welsh college in 1571. And, of course, William Morgan's translation of the Bible in 1588. So all of these things came during that period. So if we turn the clock back a bit, we can see how was Wales shown before that. Well, this is a bit of detail from the Hereford Map Mundi. I'm sure a lot of you would have seen it in the Hereford Cathedral. An amazing, amazing, huge piece of medieval vellum from 1300. It's about that. Now, a Map Mundi is not so much of a map. It's more of a kind of a big pictorial, allegorical chart of God and biblical stories mixed in with a bit of geography. And, you know, so we shouldn't take them too seriously as geographic documents. However, it does include a lot of geography, and this is Britain in the far bottom left corner, because in those days, maps, especially the Map Mundi, they didn't have north at the top, they had east at the top, because that's where paradise was. It was also the direction of the rising sun. So we're right down in the bottom left corner in Britain. And I'll use a little zapper here. I'm hoping this doubles up. It's just like one of these sort of killer things. I can take any one of you out at any moment. All right. So this is Britain. This is the island of Britain. That's England. Scotland seems to have been sliced off somewhere. This is Scotland. And this is Wales here, this long, thin, almost sliced off bit. As you can see, the detail is quite difficult to kind of cope with, really. But there's quite a lot here in Wales. It's shown on sort of an equal footing. The detail that interests me on the Map Mundi about Britain is the fact that there's only 3, in the whole of the country, there's only 3 sets of hills shown. You've got, in Scotland, you've got the Grampians. In Wales, you've got Snowdon there. And here, we have this one here, which is the Clee Hills in Shropshire, on the border, which seems such an unlikely triumvirate of hills, but no one's quite sure why that is. But you can see, yes, also there is a little nod to the time that it was done in. This is 1300, as I said, because here you've got in Wales you've got Conwy and Carnarvon are shown with their new castles. Of course, this was almost within a couple of years of Edward I's castles being built in the iron ring of fortresses around North Wales. So this is almost a report from the front line, if you like.